What's up, assholes? Welcome back to another Gwent video. The first of hopefully 6 this time. Videos talking about the new revealed cards from the Harvest of Sorrow expansion, going faction by faction. I mostly did this for the first set, but I think I just skipped Scoia'tael because I don't know, I didn't want to anymore. And I completely skipped the Thanet Cube expansion because I was just not. I mean, I wasn't making videos at the time, if I remember correctly, so I was just not in the zone for that. But I did want to do it for this one. I have not been able to find time until now, but we're going to do it. As of recording this, we've seen Scoia'tael, we've seen Nilfgaard, one neutral card, and half of the Syndicate cards. I am currently waiting, just waiting anxiously for the remaining 2 Syndicate cards today. But until then, we do have some cards to talk about, and I'm just going to get right into it because these videos can quickly take a long time because I like to ramble. So we're just gonna go pretty quickly. So Scoia'tael this time around has a focus on handbuff, which is really interesting because it's one of the more unique mechanics Scoia'tael has access to. And we haven't really seen handbuff cards in quite a while. I mean, we got Dunka in Master Mirror, which is a card that has been able to remain relevant for over a year now, which is kind of impressive. But the legendary is Filavandrel. It's nice to see this art again. This was the old leader art for Filavandrel, who is now just Invigorate, which, it's hand buff, so he does work with his previous effect. A 4/12 elf, deploy melee, create and play a Scoia'tael special card with a provision cost equal to this unit's power. And on ranged, you do the same, except its provision cost equal or lower. So, of course, if you boost him too much, and you're in a provision cost where there are no Scoia'tael special cards, or just the ones that are there you don't want, you could always play him ranged and get a plethora of options. The chance of getting something bad is unfortunately really high, but at least it's the backup option, and as a backup option, I think it's actually really good. But the card still, encourages precision-based gameplay. You want to get him to exactly the right power to get the card that you want. He is not limited to bronzes. If you get him to 8 power, you get Isengrim's Council. Get him to 9, you can get the Deer or Shaping Nature. Get him to 10, you could do Novigradian Justice. You could do Call of the Forest. I don't think they have anything at 11, but at 12, Waters of Broccolon, Yorvith's Gambit, both of which I think are suitable for provision buffs, so maybe one will go to 11, we don't know. But those are like the high-end options. Now, first things first, I think the effect is really cool. I'm a big fan of cards that just spawn and play other cards. I think a really cool way to just make a card feel powerful and make the character represented in the card feel powerful is to have them just, be a unit, have some power, but then also spawn and play an entire extra card. That just feels powerful to me. And being able to create... technically, he can spawn cards that cost the same as him, but with the 4-point body. Now, the options, they aren't all that great. There's a lot of tutoring at the top end, and of course some overcosted cards with Yorvith's Gambit and Waters of Broccolon. I think Isengrim's Council is going to be played a lot with this, because that's when you're starting to break even, because you're getting 4 points plus an 8 provision card for 12 provisions, and you get to tutor something. I think that is that's what I'm expecting to see. You just need to boost him by 4. You just play Ithleen on him, and you have it. But of course, I mean, I would love just like a hand buff deck with some cheeky dwarves, just so you can play No Regret Injustice, because that's a good card, and that would be kind of funny. But like the effect, I'm very happy with the effect. I'm glad to see hand buff support. I'm glad to see an effect that is potentially really powerful and really badass, but it requires some setup. I've seen people call this severely underpowered. I've seen people call this overpowered. I think it's in a good state where, you know, I look at it and I can't really tell if it's overpowered or underpowered. So, whichever one it ends up being, I can't blame the developers, because it's not glaringly obvious, to me at least, the power level of this card. And so if it ends up being OP, you know, I can't say, wow, how did they not see this? Why did they print it like this? Because I don't see it. How could they? Sure, they play tested, but we all know what that means. Nothing. But it's very cool. I think it's very balanced. If I had to guess, overpowered or underpowered, I will say underpowered, but I think it's perfectly fine. Moving on, the second card revealed, Bountiful Harvest. A new nature card, a 6 provision bronze. Those are always interesting. 6 provision bronzes, they are few and far between. It's a new nature card, which is very exciting. For Symbiosis decks, for Treant Protector. It's called Forest Protector, it's a Treant. Create and play a bronze Adult Blathana Elf. Then, depending on the position of the chosen unit, boost to the leftmost random or the rightmost unit in your hand by 2. So I'm sure everybody knows by now what that means. But when I first saw this card, it took me maybe a minute, like not a long time, but like it took me a minute to properly understand what they meant by, you know, the position of the chosen unit. I thought first, oh, is it where you place it on the row? That doesn't really make sense. Obviously, when you create cards, you get 3 options. And you have the leftmost, the rightmost, and the middle. The middle here being the random. And that's what it means. So it's quite interesting. You know, Dolbothana Elves, I'm not going to list them now because I don't know them all off the top of my head. I know some of the new mages from Price of Power are in there. And then some old cards that aren't really that great. But you're getting a 4 or 5 provision card. Some of which are really good. Others are very meh. And you're getting semi-controllable hand buff. You know, 2 boosts going into your hand. I think it's decent. I think it's definitely decent. And as an option for Forest Protector, in cases where you don't want to just spam Nature's Rebuke, I think this could be like a really, really nice power play with that card. You know, because Nature's Rebuke plays for 5. You know, 7 if you get the death blow. And of course removal value. But in the cases where removal value is irrelevant, maybe you don't have the death blow set up properly, like just going for this, it's going to be worth more points. It's a nature card, triggers Symbiosis. Lovely art. Scoia'tael, to me, had the most disappointing art with the last set, Thanet Coup. In this one, they're kind of cheating by bringing back an old school one with Filavandrel, but even the 3 new ones are way better, in my opinion, so it's nice to see that. Bountiful Harvest. It's a cool card. I mean, I like cards that spawn other cards, especially when they do other things in addition. I just think that's cool. Next up, Watcher of the Valley. I know some people were a bit harsh on the art on this card, and I see why. Like, they were saying it's very generic fantasy. It looks like something from World of Warcraft. I can see that. It's definitely more generic than what we've come to expect from Gwent, but at least to me, it doesn't look cartoony like a lot of the cards from the last set did. It's a good piece of art, but I do get the criticism that it's a bit generic and not super Gwent-like. But at least I think it's a nice art piece. But onto the effect. A 4 for 4. Deploy, give an enemy unit bleeding equal to the amount of boost on this card. Bond it, deal damage instead. I mean, the card is not interesting, right? It's not. Each faction is getting a new bonded unit to go with the new neutral card that I'll be talking about in a different video. But like it's not super interesting. What I will say though, I feel like with Invigorate, the way Invigorate works as a leader, and with, you know, the random nature of a lot of hand buff cards, including the next card I'll be talking about, just having a filler card like this that can soak up some random hand buffs and still put them to good use, that's nice. Like, I think it's a perfectly decent 4 provision card. I think due to the random nature of a lot of hand buffs and the widespread nature of Invigorate, like hitting 5 units at once, having filler cards like this that at least put the boost to good use, it's nice. Obviously, you need like quite a few boosts on him for him to even play for average 4 provision value. So I think the card is underpowered in that sense. Like, sure, if you put 4 boosts on him and you have bonded, you have a 4 that deal 4 for 4. Like, you have an enraged Ifrit for 4 provisions. But, you know, it requires so much setup. But it's still powerful. Like the bonded on this is, technically speaking, very powerful, because you can potentially get quite a bit of damage, right? And while the hand buffs on this card, you know, don't count as this card's value, any bleeding or damage this will apply to an enemy unit is part of this card's value. And if you get it to deal 4 damage, that's pretty good. Obviously, you can buff this to like 4 or 5. Or, you know, buy 4 or 5, get it to like 8 or 9, even 10 strength in like round 1. Round 2, the opponent drops an engine, and you just play this. No, because you need the bonded. Think, dude, think. It's not amazing. It's a good filler card for a hand buff archetype, but given how most hand buff works, that's what it is. It's not a fantastic card. You know, it's very archetype dependent, which is a good thing. I support designs like that are archetype dependent and can't just be slammed into anything. But the fact that even in the archetype that this depends so heavily on, it takes so much setup just to get average value. So I think the card is weak, but I like what it represents. It's cool. Just a little bit weak. Last up. I realize I've been sitting in a moronic way. Torque. A 4 for 8 relict. Whenever this card is boosted in your hand, boost a random different unit in your hand by the same amount. So, again, a lot of hand buff cards, including this one. There's a random element to it. You know, Bountiful Harvest has a pseudo-random. Dunka, Hawker Smugglers, it's all random. Even Circle of Life, if you can't hit the death blow, it's random. So, you know, just having a wide array of units that can use hand buffs is very good. But this card, it's an interesting engine. It's an engine in your hand. Right? And it effectively doubles all your hand buff, which is really good. Every time your Dunka randomly hits this, she also randomly hits something else, which is quite interesting. Now, a card like this would be very awful if there was no guarantee to have it in your hand. Luckily, it does come with that. Devotion, this card always starts in your hand. Very good. We don't know where it starts, because we only have one other card in the game that will guarantee to start in your opening hand. Sunset Wanderers, which specifies leftmost position, right? I'm pretty sure it specifies that it's on the far left. This does not. And I feel like the fact that it doesn't specify, does that mean that it's random? Or does the game shuffle the deck, put Torque on top, and then you draw cards, and this will be the first card you draw, so it goes to the far left? Who knows? If it's guaranteed to go on the far left, that is pretty good for cards like Bountiful Harvest. Because then you can always just pick the left option on the create screen, and you're guaranteed to get, 2 boosts on this, and then 2 boosts on something else. If it's random, like, it's still good, but you lose that little bit of consistency there. But it's a very cool card. I was very pleasantly surprised when I saw this. It's really cool. And doubling hand buffs is pretty good. It turns Invigorate from a 10-point leader to a 12-point leader, which is not, it's not crazy, but it's still good. Bountiful Harvest gives 2 hand buffs. If it hits this, it gives 4. Circle of Life, if you get the death blow, you can target Torque with the hand boost and immediately get a 7 for 5 with 4 hand buffs. Like, it's a lot of cards. We have a decent amount of cards that boost by like 2 or more. Imagine Ithleen on this. I mean, Ithleen is now a 10-point card. It's a 6 that boosts by 4. If you use it on this, you get 14 points of value. It's pretty good. It's a very nice effect. And it's no secret, Scoia'tael, I'm not a huge fan. I like dwarves. And I'm intrigued by, Harmony, Symbiosis, and hand buff has also been something that I have been interested in. It's a mechanic I like, but it's overall it's not a faction I'm super interested in. I do not play it a lot. I still won't. But I do want to try a hand buff deck at some point. Maybe soon. Maybe not. When it comes to factions that I don't play a lot myself, building my own decks becomes really hard, so I'm more comfortable waiting until someone else has made a hand buff deck, and then I just, take out the cards that I don't like, and put in some other ones. I know, it's weird. It doesn't make any sense. But Torque makes sense, and I like them. Overall, I like all these cards. Varying degrees of liking them, but I like them all. Before I end off this video, there is just one thing I want to mention that I think is very relevant to this. Regarding the new expansion release format, where they divided the full expansion into 3 parts. My thoughts on that? I think with some factions, they've done it in a good way. We'll get to this in the next video, but Nilfgaard, I think, is a good example of how this new format can work. Because all 3 Nilfgaard expansions, they are thematically connected, with all the mages and agents. But within each set, like, they're doing a different thing. Like, first it was like thinning your deck, manipulating your deck, hyper thin, stuff like that. And then there was spying, just a bunch of spying support. And then in this one, we'll get to it next video, but it's interacting with your opponent's graveyard. Very separate things. a lot of the time they will work well together, and they are thematically connected, again, like I said, with the mages and agents. But they're separate. Like, when we got Once Upon a Pyre, and the cards there, they worked. They worked by themselves. Then we got Thanet Coup, and they work by themselves, but they also work with what came before, and the same now. With Scoia'tael, when we got Once Upon a Pyre, the first set, we laughed at Scoia'tael, because it was so underdeveloped, it was so weak. And then we got Thanet Coup, which supported the exact same archetype, you know, mages, spells, and suddenly became good. But Scoia'tael was very bad for 2 months because they were lacking half of their cards. And I say half because these cards, I think, follow, you know, the good path that Nilfgaard has taken, where they're thematically connected and somewhat work together with the old ones, but these cards are doing their own thing. Now it's handbuff. And I feel like these cards, they work by themselves and in tandem with existing cards. You don't need the other price of power cards for these cards to work. So Scoia'tael, you know, Nilfgaard did it right all throughout. Scoia'tael started off very poorly, but then now they're doing it right. And Syndicate, which will be the third video, they did it all wrong. Because they're supporting the exact same archetype, the same keyword, bounty, every expansion. And we're now 2 expansions in, and it's still not being played. It's still not good. And it's still getting more support. Like, if you're going to split it up into 3 parts, spread out across 6 months, they can't be so, you know, they can't belong together so badly that, you know, you get the first set and it's absolute garbage. You get the second one and it's like, okay, now we have a few more pieces that work together, but it's still bad. And then the third one, okay, even more pieces. Like, it doesn't work. Like, we've seen the playability of the new Syndicate cards. Yes. Then it's not playable. Witchfinder is playable. You know, I have this theory. You know, in the first set, we got 1 card that is seeing play because they're able to fit it into lined pockets. Witchfinder. The other 3, not being played. In Thanet Coup, we got 1 card that saw a little bit of play, Confession Extractor, because they tried to fit it into lined pockets. It kind of fell off a bit, but the other 3 cards, no. No. So I'm kind of expecting from this set as well. I know the first 2 cards we've seen do not fit into lined pockets. You know, they're very bounty oriented, so they won't see play. But I'm expecting to see 1 card that will be played because it fits into lined pockets, and then the other 3 will be completely dead. Just you wait. Anyway, that's a lot of talk about non-Scoia'tael cards in a video talking about Scoia'tael cards. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on these cards. Do let me know down below what you think of them. Do you like that handbuff is getting support? Do you like Filavandrel? Do you like these cards, or do you not like them? Tell me why down below. Let's get some discussion going, and I'll see you in the next one. We're going to be talking about some new Nilfgaard cards that are looking very good. Very spicy. I hope to see you then. Have a good one.